So we can start. So my name is Nathan Kimutai Rono, and the presentation today is the Smart Investor's Journey, Building Wealth One Step at a Time. So with the introduction, this is me. As I said, my name is Nathan Rono. I'm in the medical field. I'm a medical student at the University of Nairobi in my 5th year. And I'm passionate in investing. So I took the time off to learn and acquire these skills. So I'm glad to share with you guys today. Okay. So without further ado, we can start. So I was told that the audience is people who are working, people who are planning to start working, and people who have retired. So this will be a two-part presentation. Maybe we can do today one part, then maybe tomorrow or another day, we do the second part. So the first part is more on what to do before investing. And then the second part is actually now ways of investing. Okay. Now, I'll start with an activity. So from the heading here, it's asking, where is your money? So I want each and everyone to write down. You can take a piece of paper, you can write it on your phone. Don't worry, you're not going to be showing me. This is for you to evaluate and see. So where is your money? So I want you to write on a piece of paper where your money is. So examples is that at the bank? Is it at your M-Pesa, M-Shwari? Is it cash at home? Is it at safe boxes, digital wallets like PayPal or Apple Cash? So I want each and everyone to write. At the end of the talk, we are going to compare. Okay, so I'll give everyone 1 minute to write. Where is your money? That's the first question. So it doesn't have to be exact figures. Like, for example, you're saying I have 5,000 in my M-Pesa. No, just generally, where is your money? Okay. I hope everyone has written. Okay, so keep that aside. Now, so there are two terms here I'm going to explain. The heading here is save before you invest. So there is savings and there is investment. Okay, those are two different things, and if each and everyone must know what it means. Okay, so savings provide security and capital for investment. So what this statement means is you cannot start investing if you have not saved. It does not go that way. So we have to save, then we invest. Okay, so I'm going to define properly so that we understand. So for savings, before we even talk about this, the question is, why do we save? Okay, number one, we save because you need capital to invest. So the principle here is we have to save first before we invest. So before you can invest, you need money, and this money comes from your savings. Okay, so that's the first reason why we should invest. Number two, an emergency cushion. So investing carries risks, as we are going to talk about it. It carries risks, and markets can generally be unpredictable. So the fact that you have savings, it can ensure that you handle any emergencies without being forced to sell your investments. possibly most of the time when people are selling off their investments, they usually sell it at losses. Okay, so that's why we need to have savings. So that's an emergency cushion. Number three, it builds financial discipline. So when we learn to save, it helps develop the habit of managing money wisely. Okay, so building financial discipline. Number four, helps avoid debt. So we're going to talk about all this. But in debt, you see, without savings, people often borrow to invest. Okay, you'll find that you've heard of an investment product and you've been told, oh, it gives you maybe 20% per annum. And if you don't have savings, the first thing is you're looking for, debt you want to borrow. Okay. So, and then number five, it prepares you for bigger investments, as we're going to talk about. So, as you climb the ladder of savings, of investment, we start with the smaller investments. As we climb that ladder, you'll see that it's only through your savings that you're able to get bigger investments. Okay. Then I've highlighted here in green, very, very important. Save to invest, don't invest to save. So this should be invest, sorry for the typo. Okay, save to invest, don't invest to save. Okay, I hope that's clear. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of this savings principle, the 50-30-20 budget rule. Quite common. It's been said all along. So just to go through it, allocate your income to these buckets. So we have 50% of the needs. Needs include things like food, housing, insurance, basic utilities, and transport. 30 are your wants. So things like travel, fashion or gear, entertainment. Then 20% are your savings. So here's where we are targeting. So retirement, investments, debt management, debt payments, and emergency funds. So this is where we are talking about today. Okay. So if you earn 100,000, 20% of that is 20,000. So that is our savings. Now this is also a very, very important concept, the pillars before investing. So before that, there is a famous quote by Warren Buffett. He usually says, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. So that means if you're earning 100,000, you save first, you remove from the source. Then, let's say you've saved 20,000, then you remain with 80,000 to spend on whatever you want. Okay, so not 100,000, then you spend, then you're left with 20,000. No, you remove at the source. Okay, now before we invest, there are some things, key principles that we have to know. Okay, so I broke them down into 6 pillars. Number one, budgeting. Okay, so this is something we usually talk about, and when you tell people to budget, they feel as if budgeting is a restriction of the money that they have. Okay, so rule number one, do not budget in your head. Okay, this basically goes to those who are starting to earn income or are yet to be employed. Do not budget in your head. This is a trap, trust me. Okay, you have to put it down. Okay, so there's some budgeting templates. So for example, like me, I use a budgeting template where it has 3 columns generally. So we have projected, so whatever you are budgeting for, then we go to the actual, then the difference. Okay, so projected means if I'm spending maybe 20,000 on my rent, and the actual was, I projected 20,000, but the actual is 15,000. The difference is 5,000. That's how the budget looks. Okay, so budgeting helps you, it shows exactly where your money goes. Okay. Funny thing is, when I was talking to some people, they were telling me that you people normally paid on the 24th, 25th. By around 15th or 12th to 15th, they say that the money is over. They say that you have too much month left. The month is more than the money. That's how people usually joke around. And that's usually caused by people who do not budget their money well. Okay. So there's a famous quote by, it's called John Maxwell, an economist. He usually says, budgeting is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Okay? Budgeting is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Because sometimes you're just there, you're like, how did my money get over? Okay, it's a very, very realistic thing. Then a budget is not a restriction, it's a roadmap. Okay. Now I want you to think about this. These billion-dollar companies. So for example, let's use in Kenya, Safaricom, banks such as Equity, NCBA, Stanchart, all those big banks, they usually put a budget for the financial year, and they manage billions of Kenyan shillings. So what about you who's managing just thousands of shillings or maybe millions of shillings? You see? So it does not make sense. If a company is budgeting billions, why shouldn't you not budget? Okay. If you have a trip you want to plan for, you want to go to Dubai maybe in December or Mombasa for Christmas, that should be in your budget. Okay. So you have a certain amount of money that you're going to be, you'll say maybe I'll put 2,000 shillings at the end of the month that I'm budgeting for that holiday in December. Okay. So that December doesn't reach and you're like, oh, there's a good offer to go to Dubai. No. So this is something you should have planned for. Okay. So that's number one, budgeting. I hope that's clear. Number two, we go to debt mastery. Now, you see, these things are very related. If you don't budget, you will overspend because you don't know, you'll not track your spending. And when you overspend, you start borrowing. It's a chain, okay? You overspend, then since you have other things to do, you have bills to pay, you borrow. Okay. Now it's very unfortunate. Many people today have turned debt into a form of income. And this is very true. Okay. So people constantly rely on things like mobile loan, these mobile loan apps where you just sign up, you have a credit score, they loan you 20,000 and then they use very harsh interest rates. Okay. So things like 20% per month, imagine 20% per month, 25% per month for you to pay, or you borrow from Shylocks. Okay. Yeah. So, but most of that debt is usually consumer debt. So consumer debt is debt that does not help you grow wealth. So funding a lifestyle that is not yours. Okay. So you end up borrowing and you use it there. Okay. So this is what we call bad debt. And this bad debt pulls you backwards. Okay. On the other hand, there's another debt called good debt. Good debt is debt that helps you make money. Okay. Now, on this part of debt, I have a question for you guys. What do you think is the average return on investment for any investment that you know of in terms of percentage per annum? Who can unmute and or type on the chat? I'll see. Any investment you've heard of?
Yeah, anything from 14 to 18.
14 to 18, that's way on the higher side. I'd like to know what investment that is, but yes, the average is actually 12, between 10 and 12%. Yes, 10 to 12%. That's usually the average. Okay. So you can imagine if you're borrowing from a mobile loan or from the bank where they charge 20% per month, you see that's quite a lot. Okay. So you're borrowing at a loss already. So number two, debt mastery. And in debt mastery, we are thinking of borrowing. And if you have debt, you have to pay your debt. You see, the thing about debt, dawa ya deni ni kulipa. You cannot escape it. So in our case, if you have something like a HELB loan, you have to pay. You must pay it. And you have to budget. Remember, you're just budgeting on how you're going to pay this loan. If you have a car loan, if you have a mortgage, you should budget on how you're going to pay it. Okay? That's debt mastery. Then we go to the third one. It's called safety vault. Now, safety vault is usually divided into three. We start with an emergency fund. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of this. Every person has heard of it. You should have an emergency fund. You should have an emergency fund. You should have an emergency fund. But in practical, do people apply it? Now, why is it called the safety vault? It's called the safety vault because here we are safeguarding our income. Okay? We are safeguarding our income. Now, emergency fund. Without an emergency fund, every small crisis becomes a reason to borrow. Okay? Guess what? These days, many lenders or people who give loans, they'll tell you that we give loans for emergencies. Okay? They sell debt, the debt that they're selling to you, they provide a solution and tell you that it's a quick fix for your emergency. Okay? And now when that happens, it's the same vicious cycle. Okay? So an emergency fund is you're setting up a fund for an emergency. Okay? And an emergency is something you didn't expect and it cannot delay. Okay? So things like a funeral. So a funeral happens and you have to go for that funeral. You have to, these are things you're going to be using your emergency fund. Number two, let's say you are traveling to Shago and then you got a tire burst or your car got spoiled. You need to fix your car. You see, these are things you did not plan for and they cannot wait. Okay. And then things like a hospital bill, especially hospital bills that are not covered by your insurance, you use your emergency fund. Another thing is in the case of job losses, you're going to be using your emergency fund. What do you think? What do you think? What about vacations? Do they fall in this category? Let's say Safari Rally is in this weekend. Would you think it will fall in this category? Definitely
Because,
not. Yes, sorry.
It should not be an emergency fund.
That's good. Because you see, the Safari Rally is something that we know that it's happening maybe every April of the year. So if you wanted to go for the Safari Rally, why don't you just budget for it? Okay. Same to Christmas. We know that every December 25th, Christmas is not going anywhere. It is there every year. So why don't you just budget for that Christmas? Same to your birthday. Your birthday is every year. So these are things you can budget for them. They should not fall in this category of an emergency. Now, there's this point. If you're employed, aim for at least 3 to 6 months of your income in your emergency fund. Okay? But if you're a breadwinner or a business person, go for at least 9 to 12 months. Okay? Why for breadwinners and business people? This is because they are the sole source of income in their family. And if it's a business person, imagine you're running a business and the business is, let's say, for example, you're selling things. And if you're not there, the business will not run. Okay, so that is the only source of income. So you can imagine you get sick, and then you lose your job, and what next? So that's why we say for these business people, because they are the sole breadwinner, we target for 9 to 12 months. But generally, if you're employed, at least 3 to 6 months of your income. And here we are the goal is your lifestyle should not change when these emergencies happen. Okay, so if your children were going to school, they should not switch schools because you lost your job. Okay, now on top of this, before we go to the insurance part, I'd add in an extra month for emergencies. Why? You see, what happens is we all have relatives, and we're all relatives here in the group, isn't it? And there are some inevitable family emergencies, things like weddings, funerals, and then you'd be added in a WhatsApp group for you to make something like mchango, a contribution for something. So that extra month, you can put it for such emergencies. Okay, I hope that's clear. Now, we are done with the emergency fund. I hope you've all understood. We now go to the medical insurance part. Sorry, is there a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually back to the emergency fund. So I needed some explanation because you were saying for those who are employed, they should actually be able to keep aside 3 to 6 months of their income for emergency. For those who are in business, 9 to 12 months. So you said, what are you saying here? I mean, when you are saying, when you have if I have a budget and maybe what we call obligations, you are telling me to set aside 3 months of my annual budget and put it aside for purposes of those emergencies.
So, sorry, maybe I didn't explain it clearly. You see, when you're doing the budget, you don't set up all your income like, no, that's not what I meant. So, like, if you're earning 100,000 and you're saving 20,000 of this, at least maybe 5,000 goes to your emergency fund. That's what I mean. So, emergency fund should have at least 3 to 6 months of your income so that your lifestyle does not change. That's what I meant. It's not that all your income, you set it under an emergency fund. No. A certain portion of your income. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, so all these things, by the way, we have not started investing. This is all under, your salary. So it's this 20% that we are talking about. Okay. This is the 20% we are talking about. So you've done the budgeting. You've understood that maybe we are working with 20,000 here. You have your debt. So debt, you would have budgeted for it. Maybe you're paying your debt slowly until you finish it. Then of that 20,000, you say maybe 3,000 goes to my emergency fund. And then now we go to medical insurance. Now, so this one I speak from the health industry. So as someone in the health industry, I've seen too many people go from grace to grass because they didn't plan for illnesses. So this is it's quite unfortunate. So before, at least these days that there is SHA, where at least you pay for the annual fee and then it caters for your illnesses or things like that. But what happens is if you don't have a medical insurance, so let's take a scenario where you're the sole breadwinner and a business person and you have no medical insurance. You get sick, maybe it's an emergency, you get sick, you have no insurance. What happens? Your income stops because you're not working, but bills, your bills do not care if you don't earn money. Okay, so rent must be paid, school fees must be paid, food your children must eat, all your dependents must eat. So bills will continue increasing. And remember, you're not earning income at that time. So it's a double loss. Okay. Now, if you have a medical insurance and this emergency fund in place, you're protected from losing money. Okay. And spending what you don't have. Okay. Now, under medical insurance, there are two types. We have the inpatient and the outpatient. Okay, so make sure your medical insurance covers both this, because the outpatient one is the good one, because maybe you get a flu, you just go see a doctor, he prescribed drugs and you're out. For the inpatient, this is in case you get an acute disease. For example, you get pneumonia, you're told you'll be in the hospital for 3 to 4 days, and there the bill comes. Or you get a bacterial infection of any sort and the bill comes. So please, 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 please make sure you get a medical insurance. Okay, we want to avoid that double loss. Now, the next one is the critical illness cover. Now, why I put this separate is because most insurances don't cover this, the critical illness cover. So critical illness cover covers the diseases like cancer, kidney failure, heart disease, and such diseases demand liquidity very fast. Okay, so you get cancer, you are required to start chemotherapy. You see, chemotherapy is done maybe twice a week or once a week at a cost of 10,000. Now imagine that it is highly liquid. Same to kidney failure. You get kidney failure, it requires dialysis thrice a week. Each dialysis session is 10,000. That's already 30,000 in a week. And you do this for the rest of your life. Same to heart disease or any critical illness. Okay. Now, what mostly happens is people get a critical illness, they start liquidating their investments. So for example, you had a piece of land, you sell it. You had animals, you sell them. And relying on WhatsApp groups, okay? But definitely that's not a long-term solution for this, okay? Then what's different from this is for the critical illness cover, the money is usually given the money. So for example, you have a critical illness cover of up to maybe 5 million. So the money is given to you, then you pay to the hospital, okay? For for cancer, kidney failure, and all those diseases. But for this other one, the difference is this one goes to the hospital direct for the medical insurance. Now, luckily, there's some employers who offer both the medical insurance and critical illness cover, which is actually very, very, it's on the brighter side. But for people who do business, highly, highly advise you take this. Okay. Then, unfortunately, as you age, these lifestyle diseases, hypertension, diabetes, they're quite common as we age. So if you have a critical illness cover, you're covered there. Okay. Now, we go to the legacy vault. Legacy. So legacy means you're moving from one generation to the next. So here, in case you're a business person, you've taken an insurance with whatever company, and maybe monthly you're paying maybe 5,000 or 3,000, covers you and your family. You have to cater for that. Same to this. Now, for the legacy vault, here, the main product here it's called whole life insurance. And this is the most selfless financial product possible. So let me explain. So many of us have young families. And we want to build wealth, okay? Reasons we're building wealth. Number one, to enjoy our current lifestyle. Then number two, to pass it on to the next generation, okay? And one common thing among Africans is that we usually say, I'm investing in my children so that when I'm older, they will take care of me. And you see, that is a very hopeful thought, okay? That is very hopeful. And one thing about money, finances, hope is never a strategy for building wealth, okay? Wishful thinking is never a strategy. Okay, sorry to blow your bubble, but to burst your bubble, but that's how it is. Okay, so that is hopeful thinking. So you'll ask yourself, so why do you need whole life insurance if it's not going to help you? So here we said the two reasons we're building wealth: to enjoy our current status and to pass it on to the next generation. Now, let me give you a scenario. Let's say you're a sole breadwinner and you get sick, okay? And you didn't have an emergency fund, you didn't have an insurance, you will most likely wipe out all your savings on the medical bills. Then unfortunately, God forbid, you die or you pass on. So one, your family is left with no money because you spent it all on your medical bills. Number two, no source of income. Number three, there is no security. So it becomes just trouble. Okay. Now, let's assume you took a whole life insurance. Now, this whole life insurance, why we say it's a very selfless product is because you don't benefit from it directly, but your dependents, your children, they benefit from it. Okay. So you're planning not for just this life, but beyond it. Okay. So let's say in that scenario, we have someone who's been saving 20,000 a month. Okay. For a year, that is 240,000 per year. Okay. Then they get sick and they die. Now, this 240,000 from the savings is going to go to the family, isn't it? Now, this 240,000 will be used to cater for burial, settling as the loved one has been lost. Okay. But now imagine if you are paying that 20,000 for a whole life insurance for this product. Now, this 20,000, it depends on the people who are giving the insurance, but mostly if you pay 20,000 for, I think 15 to 20 years, you can get up to 40 million upon things like chronic illnesses, things like paralysis, things like death. Okay. Now compare those two families. One, they only got the 240,000, and the second one, since they took a whole life insurance, the family is going to get up to that 40 million Kenyan shillings. Okay. So if you had no life insurance, you only get what you had saved, and that's the difference. Okay. Then after finishing paying the life insurance, let's say when you reach 60 and your children have grown and they're now independent, that same policy can now be used as an inheritance plan. Okay. Now that 40 million that you have can now start, and that's how you start generational wealth. Okay. Then the beauty of these products, let's say you started paying for that whole life insurance. You paid for maybe 1 year or 2 years, then you die. Something bad happens and you die. Even if you hadn't finished paying, you'll still be paid the full amount. That's how they usually work. Okay. So this is also a very, very important, the legacy vault. So we try as much as possible to get whole life insurances. Okay. Now, number 5, knowledge vault. So here, Next comes planning for your children's education. Now, it says, don't leave this to chance. Tuition is expensive and increasing fast. This is something that we know. Even if you've not started a family, planning to start a family, education is not getting any cheaper. And this is something you should be planning, okay? So the goal here is not that we rely on our salary to pay for our children's school fees. Why? Because anything can happen. Imagine if your child is going to a certain school, then you get fired. You see, you're going to have to downgrade the child from that school because you are relying on your salary to pay for the school fees. Now, if you hadn't planned for the children's education, what is going to happen? You're going to eat into your savings, you're going to eat into your investments, and that is wealth leaving you, okay? But if you set up this portfolio earlier, your children, you're setting up this portfolio such that your children will go to school whether your job is stable or unstable. There will be no disruptions or any stress, okay? That is the knowledge vault, okay? Then the last one is, it's called the golden nest. Why it's called the golden nest is because you're taking care of yourself. This is now you as an individual, okay? So what happens when you retire? Your income stops, isn't it? And definitely, you've been working for maybe 30 or 40 years, and you have built a lifestyle in that 30 or 40 years. So definitely, you want to maintain it. So do you want to go back to Shago and continue enjoying your current lifestyle, or do you want to downgrade? And definitely, most people want to enjoy their current lifestyle. But now, you cannot enjoy if you don't have a plan. So here is where we have something known as a pension plan. So similar to this, there are some employers who offer a very good pension plan for the employees. But in case you don't have, please target to get a good pension plan. And as we age, remember I had talked about it. Number one, things are going to get more expensive, especially medical related. The lifestyle diseases, diabetes, hypertension, all those are more likely to come as you age. So this pension plan and the medical insurance that you had should be taking care of you, okay? So you see, all these things that I've talked about, it's you basically start small. So even if you don't invest at all, like for example, you say, I'm not really interested in investing, just have a pension plan so that even when you stop, when you retire, you continue maintaining the lifestyle you have, okay? It's like a cushion, okay? So, have you guys understood that? Any questions? So far, so good. Thank you. I'm appreciating that. Okay. So, as you can see, we are becoming very, very intentional. Okay. So, creating wealth, creating money in general, it's not a big bang event. Okay. It just can't happen. It's not random. It's not accidental. Okay. It is you have to be very, very intentional in planning. You have to be very purposeful. And the one thing that I have to mention is it is built slowly and purposefully. Like you have to be very intentional. That is the word. Okay? Intentional is the word. Okay? So if you were to take a practical example now, you have 100,000 and you have budgeted your money, you know how you're paying your debt. You have your emergency fund where you set up maybe 5,000 a month, okay? So you've set up 5,000 a month until you reach that 100,000. And we want at least 3 to 6 months of your income. Okay, so you know how you'll calculate that. You have an insurance that is good. Same to this. You have taken a whole life insurance. Then Knowledge Vault, you are planning for your children's education, and you have a pension plan. Now, after you've done all this, is now when you can start investing. Okay, so the money that remains is now when you can start investing. Okay, so so before I mention my investment journey, how I started all this, there are some things maybe I can highlight. Okay. Okay. Just to mention, you see, money, you have to, I don't know if you guys have read the book called The Psychology of Money. Most people will tell you they have a money problem. What that means is they have not enough money. And actually, that is not true. Okay. The issue is never money. It's never a money problem. And no one should lie to you and give you a scarcity mentality or a scarcity mindset and tell you that money does not exist. It does, and it is in plenty out here. Okay? So one thing I want to explain is money is equals to value, and value is equals to money. That is how it is. You get money depending on how valuable you are. Okay? So you don't have a money problem. It's a purpose problem. Okay? And there are things that we must know before we think on, how to make more money. Okay. Number one, it's known as the social capital. So this one, very cliche, but very, very important. I also realized it, where they tell you your network is your net worth. This is very, 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 very important. Okay. Now, practically, what this statement means, if you spend time surrounded by people who are struggling, always in chaos, always in need, oye. Trust me, you're going to be the sixth person. You'll just follow that trend. Okay? So your circle, the friends that you have, the friends and family, relatives, siblings, anyone, all those people that you have, they're the ones who are going to teach you your money language. Okay? So how I did this practically, when I was learning through, as I'm going to tell you my investment journey and how I got to experience all this is, I got to teach my friends. And from my inner circle of friends, around maybe 5, 6 people, they all understood and why they should invest, from savings to investment and ways of investing. So that is our language and that is our lifestyle. Okay? So that's very, very important, your social capital. Then the next one is your financial capital. So here is what you focus on. Okay. So are you focused on investments, savings, things like assets? Okay. All these things will make your money multiply. Okay. Now here is where we usually say it's not about the amount of money you earn. Okay. Okay. It does not matter. In fact, one important thing I want you to take away from this is the amount does not matter. It has never mattered. Okay. The most important thing is time. And I want you guys to know that. I'll explain. Time is the most important factor in wealth creation. Not amount, time. Okay. So here, just focus on these things: investments, savings, and assets. Okay. These are You're focusing on ways your money is going to make more money. Okay. Then another one is knowledge capital. Okay. So here, so your vision eats knowledge for breakfast. That's a very, very important quote. So if you don't invest in yourself, the ideas that you have, your ideas, they starve. Okay. So most people will be, looking for ways to create more money. They're chasing money, but they're ignoring the knowledge and the skills that they have to attract that money and to sustain it and to multiply it. Okay. So by, through this talk, through engaging with your friends, through such things, you're increasing your knowledge. And trust me, if you increase the knowledge, if you know, the know-how of how to multiply knowledge, that is how you're going to attract better opportunities. Okay. And this goes to same to your employment. So increase your skills, your knowledge, and trust me, money will follow. Okay. Then there's the spiritual aspect of it. Okay. This is mostly overlooked by many people. Okay. You see, we live in a world where we glorify, hustling, looking for money always. We're chasing the next big deal, the next investment. For those employed, we're chasing the next promotion. But at the end of the day, you should ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing all this? Okay. So that deeper spiritual aspect, the inner compass you have, that is what is going to guide you. Okay. So your values, the direction you take, and the purpose you have. Okay. That is your spiritual aspect. That's the spiritual capital. Then the last one, which is also the most important, is your behavior. We call it behavioral capital. Now here, these are your habits and your character. Okay. Now, you see, I've talked for almost an hour, and I'm sure some of the things I've told you, you already know them. Or if you've not, you've heard of them. Okay. So in terms of personal finance, it's usually 20% is usually head knowledge. Okay. Then the 80% is your behavior. Okay. So here, it's the psychology of money. What do you do when you get money? Okay. Most of you know that you should be budgeting, you should be saving, you should be, you should be investing. But it's what you do after you get that money. Okay. What I can say is many people are impulsive spenders. Like, you get this money, you're like, what do I do? The first thing I do is I want to buy this, I want to upgrade. Now is when your phone seems old, you want to buy a new, maybe the gas doesn't look good, a new cooker, a new oven, the fridge is old, just impulsively spending. Okay. Now there's some where it's the vice versa, where they hoard money, especially for people who grew up in an area. This I have experienced from people who I've talked to. Those people who grew up in an environment where maybe their parents told them, money is not grown on trees. Money is hard to get by. They become hoarders and they oversave. Okay. So they'll tell you, pana, I don't want to invest. Okay. And one thing you should know is you can never save yourself to wealth. It's impossible. If it were that, so everyone would be wealthy. You can never save yourself to wealth. Okay. And then now there are some who have, I can call it toxic generosity. Okay, where they give, they give till they're empty. Yeah, I'd say that. Okay. They give till they're empty. They can give. Yeah. Jijali, hata area teseke lakini apeane tu. No, not really in terms of money, but kusaidia tu watu. Okay. So in behavioral capital, we are interested in our financial behavior. What's our money personality? And it's very good that everyone to look within themselves and to see what is your money personality? What do you do when you get money? Okay, what are the triggers? Okay, now I want to give you an example. Let's say you have worked for 20 years and your salary is 150,000 for 20 years. And you receive a pension, let's say a pension of maybe 10 million, just an example. And it's a lump sum pension. Okay. And your spending habits are this 150K, you've earned it for 20 years. What do you think will happen to this person when you give them the lump sum? Any answers? Who wants to try?
Can I try?
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm not sure if I'm. Yeah, your lifestyle will change because the money, when you calculate it, will not be to last you for maybe another 40 years after your retirement.
Mm-hmm. So you will upgrade your lifestyle, definitely. But now, yes? Mm-hmm. Any other answer?
Oh, okay, you had me. Okay.
Yeah, you said you'll upgrade your lifestyle. Yeah, so yeah, that's the most logical answer that will happen. This person who has earned a lump sum of 10 million shillings, what is going to happen is, so I'll take you back to high school where there's a principle in chemistry called Le Chatelier. It's a Le Chatelier principle. It says a system that is in a steady state at equilibrium remains at that steady state unless there is external pressure in which it will return to that steady state. So with that same principle, if you've been earning 150K for 20 years and you earn 10 million lump sum, what is going to happen? Your lifestyle will change. So it'll actually be very subconscious, okay? This money, this 10 million will be reduced slowly by slowly. You later spend, you will start giving it away. You will consume it until you reach your normal financial comfort zone. Okay. Now that's why you see most retirees, after being given their pension, after 5 years, oh, they are back to where they started. Okay. Someone was joking, they'll say, kwani uliweka tax kwa pesa? So yeah, that's what happens. Okay. Now, if you understand, yes?
No, we are saying it is true.
Mm.
Because I think there is some excitement about this huge income.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, very, very, very common. Yeah, so you see, this is someone who did not understand their money personality, and they have seen that they are impulse spenders, and this is very common. So, okay, now there are those people, they're natural givers, as I had explained. Okay, they give till they're empty, the toxic generosity. In fact, I have an uncle who he's like that. Sometimes I'd see him, he do not eat. Lakini if nephew or a niece would call and say, oh, sijui hana hivi, anapiga simu, anatuma pesa. We call it black tax. Don't know if you guys know it. You know, helping relatives, friends, just helping everyone until you're broke. Okay? So notice I've not used the word poor, but broke. Poor is more permanent. Broke is very temporary. That's what is going to happen. So how I told him, and I've seen these days he has stopped, is number one, he has to pay himself first. Before he pays other people, pay himself first. This means that he has his own savings, as we had talked about, you know, all his own savings, his own investments. Then the money that remains is now when he can give. Okay? I'm not saying you don't give, but pay yourself first. Okay? Then the psychology of people is very funny. You see, when you give someone something, at first, the first time, they'll tell you thank you. Okay? They borrow you again. The second time, they borrow you again. They may say thank you. Second time, they now expect it from you. Okay? So you're like, hey, you should be sending this. The third time, they're anticipating. Then the fourth time, they now demand it from you. Mind you, you're giving them, okay? So there's a time I gave a friend of mine, umemtumia hivi pesa mara ya kwanza, nikamtumia mara ya pili. Then, you know, I'm used to when you give someone money, they tell you, thank you, nimepata, asante. So he didn't tell me. So I called him after a few hours, nikasema, ulipata ile pesa nilikutumia? Anakwambia, nilipata, lakini ukuweka ya kutoa. So it was very odd, by the way. I found it very insulting, where I send you money, you don't appreciate nimekupea, and then you get, you know, audacity to tell me sikuweka ya kutoa. So I cut him off. Nikamwambia hapana, mimi tena usiniombe pesa tena. So we are creating, this is a form of dependency when we give people money. Okay, we are establishing dependency when we do this. This is now the psychology of the black tax. Okay. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So make sure you understand that. So your social capital, your financial capital, knowledge capital, spiritual, and behavioral. These are very, very important before we start investing. Okay. That's very, very important. Now, I can talk about the last thing, one last thing, and then maybe next time when we are starting, we do just the investment part, but it's called the rat race cycle. I don't know if, has anyone heard of this?
No, I have not heard.
I've not heard as well.
Anyone else anyone who has heard of it?
I've also not heard.
What about this? It seems no one has heard of it. Not yet. Yeah. So it's a very common, it's common amongst people read and engage with financial books, you know, financial podcasts. It's called the rat race cycle. Okay. So if you can see in this cycle, maybe one person can unmute and tell us what do they see before we explain what this cycle means. What do you see in this cycle?
Okay, maybe I can chime in.
Okay.
So I see, to start with, somebody working at the very top. After he works, he gets an income and he seems quite happy. He has earned that money, and then he has bills and responsibilities. So he's up and about paying the bills. And then there's the lifestyle. So, you know, you have to buy your clothes, you have to make sure you have the newspaper, and your wife also looks good. And then after that, he notices that he's living beyond his income. There are no savings. And then he goes and gets a credit card and a loan. And that forces him to work again, work very hard. And so it's the rat race cycle.
Yes, perfect. Perfect. So you've described it very well. So do you see yourself facing this financial struggle? Now, this rat race cycle, by default, if you're employed, you usually start off with the rat race cycle. Everyone. So you cannot say, oh, mimi sikuwa hivyo rat race cycle. The fact that you are in an employment, you usually start off with the rat race cycle. Okay. So the rat race cycle, it's a financial struggle where people get trapped in this repetitive cycle. Okay, so we are working, we are earning, we are spending, we are accumulating debt. Okay, we are not achieving financial freedom. Okay, so you see, this guy is working. He works to earn his job. So this guy is working, he gets money, very excited. He gets his paycheck. Now, in this paycheck, he does not budget, but he knows he has bills to pay. The bills must be paid. Okay, so things like rent, utilities, any daily expenses he has, he's going to pay it. It's his responsibility. Then he goes to his lifestyle. He'll prioritize spending on things like luxuries. As you can see, this lady, she's maybe wearing Fenty, Gucci bag and all those things. It gives them instant gratification. So he had no savings, no investments. Then what are they? They're living beyond their means. Okay. So how are they living beyond their means? They are, first of all, maybe they cannot afford this bag. So what are they going to do? They're going to borrow. Okay. So they'll take these credit card loans to facilitate and pay off this lifestyle that they want to live, knowing that they're living beyond their means. Okay. Trying to afford this lifestyle. And the cycle continues. You do this every month for the next 40 years. No savings, no investments, and the cycle repeats. What happens here? You will never achieve financial freedom. So you're stuck in this cycle, constantly needing to work for money without building wealth. Now, this rat race cycle, it was developed by a person called Kiaru. He's the writer of a book known as Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Who has ever heard of that book? Robert Kiyosaki, that guy. Who has heard of that book? You've heard of it? Yes. I won't even ask if you've read it, but you've heard of it. Okay. So how Robert says, how to beat this rat race cycle? The only way to beat the rat race cycle is if your passive income, so these terms that I'm using, we are going to define them. If your passive income is greater than your expenses, that is how you get out of the rat race cycle. What that means is the money you earn outside of working pays off your bills, your lifestyle, and your debt. That is how you get out of the rat race cycle. There's even a book, a game. It's called, let me even write the name of the game. It's called Cash Flow. It's a game similar to Monopoly, but I'm sure you guys have heard of Monopoly. So it's a game called Cash Flow. You can purchase it and sorry?
Yeah, we've had.
Yes, you can purchase it and try playing. It's a simulated game where you get a character, you have the details. For example, you get a character like a doctor. He has the details. You have the debt the doctor has, the doctor is paying off mortgage, like that. So the aim of the game is your passive income is more than your expenses, and that's how you win the game. Okay, so the game is called Cash Flow, a very good game. It teaches you on financial literacy and just how to budget and spend your money. Okay, I'd recommend it. I've played it with my friends. Very, very interesting game. Okay, so this is the rat race cycle. And now I think from next time, we can start on how to escape this rat race cycle and now get into ways of investing and things like that. So any questions?